my social media right now is a great Vanity Fair piece written by my next guest, Mark McKinnon. You know him as a one-time advisor to President George W. Bush, an advisor to Senator John McCain, an advisor to so many of our better-known, more successful politicians. Is also the co-creator of that great franchise, The Circus, on Showtime, which comes back soon. The piece that I'm referring to is titled Some Light Shines in the Biden Tunnel. But before I talk any substance, for those who will watch this conversation on YouTube, I just have to say, he is in the most spectacular setting of anyone I've ever interviewed via YouTube, Zoom, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Where exactly are you? Are you in an undisclosed bunker? Are you at liberty to say?
I am. I'm in paradise here, Michael. I'm in Blue River, Colorado, which is at altitude 10,000 feet, population 800. It's the Blue River right behind me and the White River National Forest. I'm a super lucky guy to be here.
So over your left shoulder is a burning fireplace. I pray it's real wood.
It is, because I love the smell of wood smoke. It's one of my favorite smells. And by the way, a shout out to your corporate sponsors. I'm super cozy in my Bombas socks this morning.
Hey, Mark, I promise I'll talk politics, but I've recently binged Yellowstone. A guy with your interests, I have to believe, is into that show. And it bummed me out recently because there was a camera frame where if it was what I thought, Kevin Costner was in front of a gas-fired fireplace. And I thought, that doesn't cut it for that show.
Oh, boo. Well, that's when it's an amazing show. And it's really the most popular scripted show on television right now. Huge breakthrough. You know, started off really small in little rural areas around America, and it's really caught on. Taylor Sheridan, who's the writer of the show and the showrunner, is an amazing guy from Texas who's got a great story. He used to live in Austin washing dishes. You know, he's in a lot of the show. He's the guy, the super horse trainer guy, the expert horse guy, because he really is an expert horse guy. And it's a fantastic show. And by the way, it's the inspiration for a new project that I'm scheming on for my next chapter.
I'm doing this from memory. I didn't expect that we would talk about it, but I love talking about it. I think they drew 11 million people for their final episode, which is pretty amazing for a show like that streams. Do you, with your political sensitivities and knowledge, do you think that Yellowstone is as successful as it is because in many respects it's a rebellion against wokeness?
I think that's a big part of it, Michael, and it just harkens back to so much of just the American spirit and our, just our wide open spaces, land, family, and also the storytelling is it's so pure and simple and clear narrative structure, great characters, and a lot of really good guys and a lot of really bad guys.
You know, it's amazing to me how much I think of you politically, and of course the success of The Circus is a political show, very unique, but you're already evidencing a lot of understanding and knowledge about the world of television. Did it surprise you that your show finally got on TV and that it has become as successful as it has?
Oh, listen, Mike, it took me 10 years to get it on the air, and then, which I could write a book about, and then it was designed to be about the campaign. So I thought we'd be one and done in 2016, maybe come back 4 years later. And 3 weeks into the Trump administration, they said the circus hadn't stopped, keep going. And I was at first skeptical. I thought, it's Washington, it's static. How interesting could it be? And boy, was I wrong. And by the way, they first gave us 26 episodes, which is a lot of TV. That's 2 seasons of a regular show. And I thought there's just going to be weeks where we don't have enough material. We're now over 100 episodes. And the one thing that has never happened in 100 episodes plus is we've never not had enough material. It's all, the challenge is always, what are we going to cut?
And back soon.
Yes, back in a couple of weeks.
All right, looking forward to it. So the piece about some light shining on Joe Biden, how big of a political boost might he get from Justice Breyer's retirement and the opportunity to appoint a successor?
Well, I think it's big, Michael, and in all the campaigns and government work that I've done, what you always want is an opportunity to just change the narrative. And the narrative on Biden was just so ugly and brutal. I mean, we don't have to, bring up all the reasons why. They're obvious: COVID and Afghanistan, you name it. I mean, about as low as you can go in a presidency, really. And so this just offers a chance to turn the page and talk about something else, anything else. And the good news for Biden is that this is not like a one-day story or a one-week story. This is going to be a several-month story. This is going to be in the news for a long time. There's going to be a lot of deliberation about it. And it's pretty much all upside for Biden. This is a campaign promise. It's a good story. Republicans they're going to kind of, they'll have their standard opposition, but it's going to, we know, I mean, with a good degree of certainty that the nominee will likely will go through ultimately. So it's a good story overall. And the thing that really surprised me, Michael, that I mentioned in the column is this polling that, again, think about the fact that Biden is before this decision, let's just say he's at a super low point. I'm not saying it couldn't get lower. It always can, I guess, but hard to imagine a whole lot lower than that. And yet, in some polling done by Politico and the Morning Consult, it shows that Biden not only would beat Donald Trump in a rematch, but he'd beat every other Republican comer that they polled. Ted Cruz, Mike Pence, Donald Trump Jr. He beats them all across the board, which was really a surprising finding to me. And what it suggests is that, yes, people are, and Democrats included, are disappointed that Joe Biden is not the next FDR, but he is what he was elected to be, and that is he is not Donald Trump. And the problem for the Republican Party is they can't get Trump off the windshield and put him in the rearview mirror, because all those people that they put up against Biden are in some ways connected to Trump.
There was a Philadelphia Republican leader named Bill Meehan. Like his father, Os Meehan, before him, he was the party chair for many, many years, lean years, because there's such a Republican deficit in the city of Philadelphia, but he was nonetheless successful. I think he's the one who first said, when I heard these words, you can't beat somebody with nobody. And when I read your piece in Vanity Fair, Mark, I was thinking about that, because you note that there are two ways of doing these surveys. It's Biden against a generic Republican, and you get one result. And then you say, oh, let's plug in a couple of names, and all of a sudden you get a totally different result.
Yeah, the bad news for Republicans is that there's actually nobody named generic Republican that's going to run. And when you say generic, people always sort of just think of like, the Superman, the Superwoman that could run. That really just doesn't exist in real life. It has to be a real life human being with their flaws and blemishes and all. And nobody's perfect. And that certainly applies to the prospective candidates who will be running. And as I said, I believe for the Republican Party to move forward, they've got to somehow cut the anchor loose in Donald Trump. And unfortunately for the Republican Party, they show no signs of doing that in the near future.
Something else about which I agree with Mark McKinnon. Neither of us thinks that Joe Biden stands for re-election. In your Vanity Fair piece, you pose some names of those who could in the event he doesn't. Who's at the top of that list?
Well, I mean, the standard names that you think about are first of all, within the administration, Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg. The vice president of an incumbent president is always the first on the list. And Pete Buttigieg is just a rock star in the administration. And so those are the two names within the administration that are often mentioned. But I list a bunch of others, including Amy Klobuchar, Mitch Landrieu, who I really love. I did his first race for mayor of New Orleans, and that guy is smart, thoughtful, can appeal in red and blue states. I think he's terrific. Cory Booker, the prisoner of hope. Gavin Newsom, Stacey Abrams, Roy Cooper, a Democratic governor from North Carolina, Elizabeth Warren, Phil Murphy, Gina Raimondo, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, I think will run. I don't think she'll win, but I think she's got great ambitions. And then I'd throw out a couple of celebrity business ideas like Bob Iger or Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, which is, of course, kind of crazy and absurd, but it's a crazy and absurd world, and Donald Trump ran in one. So
let me talk about the anchor to which you referred a moment ago. I've said consistently on this program and on CNN that if Donald Trump wants to run, he'll be the nominee unless one of three things happens. That is that he's indicted, he's in poor health, or he's insolvent. This January 6th effort really does seem to be gaining steam, or at least on certain in the cable world, gets ignored elsewhere. How does Mark McKinnon see it? What level of Achilles heel do you think January 6th presents Donald Trump?
I don't know, Michael. I mean, it's such a profound moment in our history and so sad, and yet it bothers me to no end to hear the sorts of things that Donald Trump talk about, pardoning people, which is such a mafioso thing. It's like witness tampering to all those people out there who may be involved in testifying, to say, cover me and I'll cover you, which is what he did with Roger Stone and Paul Manafort et al., Michael Flynn. I'm encouraged by the fact that people like Mark Short, who worked for Mike Pence, who was his kind of his key aide, and kind of some of Pence universes out there apparently telling the truth. And as much as it bothers me that so much of the Republican Party has rolled over, it only takes a few people to tell the truth and for the truth to get out. And I think that that's important. I just worry that ultimately the base and that Trump and the Trump loyalists don't care. I mean, you could say anything about January 6th because they do believe, because of Donald Trump, that the election was a fraud and that it needed to be overturned. So I just think in terms of, I don't think it's going to damage Trump or his primary prospects.
Right. So with that group in his corner, I mean, I remember 2016. I remember how many were on that stage. They had to have an A and a B debate in terms of, it's like a junior varsity and a varsity. I remember one night at the Reagan Library sitting there for both of them. If that base remains lockstep with him, that he can't be denied the nomination. You know what I see, Mark? I see him jeopardizing what should be such a superb midterm election for the Republicans, because if you watch the rally from north of Houston last Saturday night, and I confess that I did, it's the same old plus pardon talk. Like it is just a Trump greatest hits reel that shows no sign of growth as a candidate.
Oh, that's a good point. I mean, it's really there's really no upside in terms of addition.
Right.
And it's the same old tune, and ultimately that gets thin. And by the way, to the point about generic Republicans, the really unfortunate thing for Republicans who may be on kind of Squish Island like I am and others, is that when you think about the future, if you take Donald Trump out of the equation, the upside is huge. I mean, it sort of becomes that generic Republican but if you put up a candidate in the current environment, and given Biden's track record so far, if you put up a Republican who had no association with Donald Trump, who defied Donald Trump, who was willing to, as I said, put him in the rearview mirror, kind of like Glenn Youngkin did in Virginia, then I think you'd have a very prospectively strong Republican candidate in 2024. But nobody has shown signs yet of really cutting those ties. And if they did, they'd probably get crushed in a Republican primary by the Trump loyalists.
I was just going to say that the person you just described wins a general, but probably can't get nominated. Final question, and thank you for being so gracious with your time. When our conversation ends in a moment, I have this vision of you going to some local place for grub. Like, what's your day look like?
My day here now?
Yeah. Like, you going ice fishing? Or you going on a nature? Like, I'm so mesmerized by your environment.
I'm going to throw on some skis, and I'm going to get my Australian Shepherd Gracie, and we're going to go right out that back door and straight up the mountain, put skins on my skis, climb up. We'll climb for 2 hours or so. We'll take the skins off, lock the skis down, and we'll ski back in, and then we'll come down here and we'll have a nice little nap.
That is awesome. What a day.
Before we get back in the human microwave at the circus in a couple of weeks. This is my
Good for
zen.
you. All right. Well, thank you for allowing me to intrude on what is a wonderful day for Mark McKinnon. I appreciate it very much.
Well, you're my favorite voice of reason, you and Stan Powers out there. Keep kicking it hard.
That's fabulous that you remember. Thank you, Mark. I'll see you soon.
Kick it hard.
That's Mark McKinnon, ladies and gentlemen.
Clouds to the left of me.